To me, the most important rule for making fair gameplay is that every failure should be the result of the player's mistake. But that being said, actually implementing this rule well can be difficult. Very difficult. Gameplay can be such a huge challenge, and that's mainly because developers usually have so many other things on their hands. I have encountered so many gameplay mistakes in my time as a Roblox player, and that's probably because I've been on this platform for well over half my life now. Safe to say, I have a pretty good idea of what makes gameplay feel fair, so I thought it'd be nice to throw out some tips to make good gameplay a lot less of a headache. As stated previously, this is the most important rule this video will be covering, so it's only fair we cover it first. Losing to the player's mistake could mean them forgetting a certain mechanic, being careless, or just overall making a bad play. In general, a loss should always make the player feel that they deserved it, so they can clearly understand what went wrong and improve for the next time. Not following this rule can lead the player to feel that they didn't deserve to lose there, it was completely out of their control. If you play absolutely to the best of your ability and lose anyway, that's like getting all the answers right on a test and failing anyway. Things like bugs, RNG, maps, etc. can all equally lead to this feeling, so try to keep that in mind. Right away, explanations are something you absolutely need to get right for obvious reasons. Good explanations are usually easy to digest and are able to be learned quickly. A common mistake I see developers making is adding way too much text in to explain things. On paper, this might seem like a good idea to thoroughly flesh out your mechanic, but in practice, doing this just makes the player not want to read it at all. I recommend limiting text explanations to up to 5 dot points, and if you can't do that, then just dumb down your mechanic. There's no way it needs to be that complicated. Or an even better alternative, don't use text at all. A good way of doing this is by using the environment and context clues to your advantage, whether it be through signs or some other means. I personally love the way Grace introduces mechanics, by giving the player a simple note that explains what to do through pictures and a simple sentence. It's actually scientifically proven that people remember things way better through images and actions rather than reading text. So it's now clear that abusing visuals is always the better option. With that being said, always make sure there's a place where the player can read the mechanics in case of future use. And no, Wikipedia does not count. For the most part, you want to keep unskippable ones at around up to 5 seconds max, and ones above that threshold should be skippable. Most people are here to actually play the game, and I don't think it's nice to flood that time potentially having fun with super long cutscenes. Also, be sure to make it clear when the cutscene actually ends. There have been times where this has happened to me, and I'm just sitting there waiting for it to end, even though it already has. It's just bad communication. One-off objectives are stupid and people don't want to do them. Try not make objectives essential to progress, because people want to actually play the main fun part of your game. You can't tell me that pressing E on 8 pieces of trash before I actually start having fun is a good idea. If you really want to add objectives to your game, then make sure they're actually grounded into the main meat of the game. A good example of this is how a game like Adopt adds objectives, but they actually contribute to the core loop of the game, while role-playing is still very prevalent. In a game like Weird Street Dad, objectives like these serve no purpose other than to waste the player's time. I hate Weird Street Dad! Think of it like this. If you removed all the objectives in your game, would it still be fun? Do you guys remember that abysmally long and boring factory part in RB Battle Season 3? Yeah. Try to add checkpoints during long sections to respect the player's time. It's just the right thing to do. A big reason gameplay may feel unfair to the player sometimes stems from the way it's communicated and not because the mechanic per se is unfair. The player should immediately know what is killing them, or else death won't feel like their fault. If the player takes damage, it should immediately be shown why they took damage and what mistake they made. Failing to do this just leaves you thinking, what on earth even happened? To fix this, just make it really clear what hit you with things like hit indicators or death screens. Audio is one of the most underutilized mechanics in games, and I believe the best use for this is clarity. A sound before danger accompanied with some visuals can help things feel fair and deserved. Here are some examples. Gosh, where do I even start with RNG? RNG can both make a game have fun variety or just make it a living hell for the player. To me, RNG should not be used to alter outcomes, but instead to prevent gameplay from becoming stale. If a player dies to something like bad RNG, they'll just feel cheated because really, there was nothing for them to do besides pray they get the outcome that favors them the most. You always want to base losses based on skill and never something like luck. When using RNG for random gameplay variety, always make sure every possibility is balanced so no event seems better than the other. You can't say to me that anyone actually enjoys playing Artful on glass houses. A good example of this is how Grace implements RNG. There's a decent chance an entity can spawn in the room you enter, but there's always plenty of time to react accordingly to said entity. Oh, Electro, but I love gambling. Shut up! How much should you punish the player for a mistake? Instant death? 2 shots? 3? I see developers either overdo this or severely underdo this, so I conjured up this little table to give some sort of grasp on the topic. Instant kills should be extremely avoidable and easy to react to. 2 shots should also be just as avoidable but can feel undeserved at times, and so on. Basically, you want to scale punishment based on how dodgeable something is. You never want to be harshly punished for something you could barely react to, and vice versa. With punishment should also come rewards. Rewards in games are usually given after pulling some kind of risky move, or as people like to call it, high risk, high reward. But here's the thing. High risk, high reward is semi-RNG. If something is risky, there's no guarantee your move will land and will likely depend on an X and a Y factor. This is why I like high skill, high reward. I think a good example of this is in block tears, where if you simply time difficult inputs right, you can get high rewards. Just overall, making smart but difficult to learn moves instead of risky ones feels a lot better to pull off and should 100% reward you accordingly. I genuinely don't blame developers for resorting to high risk, high reward though, because actually implementing the latter is much harder. Why? Why do people even do this? I get that if you're trying to close the bottle of matte, then it's probably the right thing to do, but invisible walls can definitely be problematic in some spaces. Most of the time, you can just do transparency 100%, because non-experienced players will die because of this. You should keep invisible walls to a minimum and only use it if you absolutely need to. Same goes with having fully visible objects that you can just phase through. Just why? Why would you do this? Oh dude, I just love dying to pure chance rather than my own mistakes. I'm lying. Doing nothing isn't fun. Try to avoid locking or limiting the player's control unless you truly believe with your heart and soul it's actually worth it. Even still, I would recommend doing this for up to 5 seconds, and doing this add a nice to look at animation. If you can, just try to slow down the player's movement as a nice alternative. It's important to keep in mind that the game will be extra easy if you made it, which is why it's important to get other people to play test your game. Not only to find bugs you may have not noticed, but to see how the average new player will react to your game. If you can actively see them finding a certain part problematic, then you might want to tweak that part of it. When receiving feedback for your game, it is super important you know how to differentiate skill issues from your bad decisions. To do this, I'd recommend getting several people to test your game and see what each of them struggle with the most. Say if all the noobs hit a skill-based event, then it's probably just them being bad. But if literally everyone complains about one specific item after hours of gameplay, then there's probably something wrong. It's usually not wise to act on feedback by someone who's not experienced, so be sure everyone has at least 3 hours on your game so they understand the core fundamentals before giving criticisms.
Now to get on with my day.
Guys, make Hazard stand out, it's only fair. If you lose purely because of your teammates, that's not necessarily your fault. Try not make teamwork essential, so it's still the player's fault if they lose. It's also probably a lot harder to communicate thanks to the chat ban, so try to keep that in mind. Why do developers do this? RNG sucks! I hate it! I hate it! I hate it! Guys, be creative about your game. I've seen so many developers just steal a whole other experience and put their own visual flair on it. It's okay to take inspiration from another game, but please, add something that makes it unique and drastically change up how you play it. I don't want to play the 15th copy of Forsaken with no extra changes done to how I play it, okay? If you're gonna code an entire mechanic into your game, the least you can do is use it consistently. If you only use a mechanic once in your whole playthrough, think! Is this really worth putting in? Chances are that it's not. Make sure you have a good bunch of mechanics your game has to offer that can all be used consistently. It's always nice to monetize your game to pay off your hard work, but please, no one likes pay to win. If you make things purchasable with Roblox, it should only benefit the buyer in terms of quality of life. Say more XP, money, effects, that kind of stuff instead of things like special items or abilities. Giving them some sort of other gameplay changer will feel a bit unfair even if it is balanced. Making hard, unfair Roblox games is a pretty easy thing to do, but making hard and balanced Roblox games is not. Overall, when making hard games, you still want game overs to feel like the player's fault and instead have room for error much smaller. And that's basically all the tips I could give. Anyways, I hope you took something useful from this video, and feel free to drop more in the comments. Oh yeah, I actually do have one final tip for making fair gameplay.
he decided to vape to numb the pain of his intense feelings for men, especially Jimmy. With each drag, he sought solace, hitting the vape again and again and again.